Hey, everybody, this is Coach Andy Knapp, and I'm excited to have with us today a successful business owner from Indiana, Matt Green from Blue Duck Lawn Care. Hi, Matt. How you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks. Well, let's start with introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about your personal story.
Yeah, I'm Matt Green, owner of Blue Duck Lawn Care. We were formerly known as Green's Lawn Care and Property Services, and we just rebranded going into a fun economy. And so some of me wonders if that was a good idea. Some of me wonders if it wasn't. That's neither here nor there anymore. You have to pull the Band-Aid off at some point. And so we started the business 8 years ago as Green's Lawn Care and Property Services. We did all types of maintenance services. Um, I had a previous company to that failed, so I understand what it's like to have a failed business. And I took the things that I learned and applied it to the new business. And we started doing maintenance work. So that means mowing, leaf removal, snow removal, all your typical landscape maintenance type services. And then a few years back, we had this wonderful thing that hit the United States called COVID. And that really changed a lot of people's business. And the landscaping industry typically didn't get hit nearly as hard. Most people in the landscaping industry actually grew, but it was a great time to reflect as you had more time on your hands. You weren't so busy in your life. It made you slow down some. And it really taught you to reflect and see what is super important. And we came up with what was super important to us, and it was our people, taking care of our people first and foremost. And that included paying them more money, offering them better benefits. And so we decided at that time we were going to pivot our business 100% into new services. And now we only offer fertilization, weed control, and those services to include seeding and things like that. And then we offer pest control services, mainly exterior pest control, but we are delving into interior pest control this year. And in the wintertime, we have pivoted to now installing Christmas lights. And so we no longer do snow removal. We no longer do leaf removal. Those are services we typically do in the wintertime. And now we just add a lot of joy and beauty to people's houses and makes their kids smile and the whole 9 yards in the wintertime. So it's wonderful. And with this transition,
Great.
we we had been known as Green's Lawn Care for so long, and now that we're pretty much a brand new company, we have all new services. We decided that we needed a full rebrand as part of our growth strategy, and so that's where we are. Spring of
I like that a
2024,
lot.
and
I like Blue Duck. You're a blue duck in a sea of green because there's a lot of green everywhere.
there is green. And funny enough, I mean, this rebrand thing takes a lot of way more money than I ever expected. It's a lot more stressful than I ever expected. And there's a lot of, like you said, a lot of greens. And we used to be greens, and my shirt still says greens because we don't have any of our apparel in still. We got some of it in, and we had to send it all back to the place because it wasn't right.
Right.
So,
Well, that
poor
happens
thing.
sometimes. I think it's cool. I think it's cool. I just saw the new skins on your trucks and your and billboards and some of those items. I think it looks cool. I think it's going to pay off in the long run. So now you kind of touched on it last time, but tell me about you kind of tell me about how the business came about, but when did you decide you had the confidence to run your own business?
Man, um, that was definitely once we had started, I had the full confidence of knowing, this is what business really is. I had graduated college, and we had already had a lawn care business because we weren't super well off growing up, and so we needed to mow yards just to be able to pay the bills. I had a father that had multiple sclerosis, and so he wasn't able to work a good portion of my life, and so we had um, pretty much a single income for three teenage growing boys that played sports, and it was really tough. And so we had to supplement our income somehow. And so we had this small lawn care company. Then I go to college, and I have 2 college degrees now. And then I go and work for this massive company called Xerox, and I get this amazing training. It was sales training. I later find out I thought sales training was business training. I was like, man, I could go slay all the dragons and do just amazing things. And so, um, Xerox wasn't paying off because I did not appreciate the manager that I had working for us, or I was working for. He was a slimy guy. Um, so I left, and my wife and I decided to move back to Indiana. I was living in Ohio at the time, moved back to Indiana, and I was like, you know what? Well, the reason we moved back is because I had this dream that I could run this lawn care business again that we had previously had, started up again. And I could take all this knowledge that I gained that I thought was business knowledge, and I could impart it into this business, and we could blow up and make all this money and like have great lives and, the whole 9 yards. And after the first year was fine because it was just me. My wife had a job, wasn't that hard. I had no cash flow issues because if I didn't have any money in the bank, I didn't need the money anyways because my wife had a job and we were living at my mom's house. So like we didn't have really any bills. So it was
Yeah.
great. And I didn't understand cash flow. I didn't understand any of that stuff. And then year 2 comes, I hired some guys, and I didn't know I never heard the term cash flow, never heard the term COGS. I didn't know anything. And I was so oblivious to all of this stuff. And one day I go to make payroll and there's no money in the bank. So I had to take a personal loan from my wife to even make payroll. And at that point, I realized that I had no business running a business, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I was stuck and I was struggling. And it's like, man, you feel like a failure and you just want to give up. And then I joined this group in our the CRM that we use is called Service Autopilot, and Service Autopilot is a software, and they used to have this program called Academy. And Academy was essentially a passion project from the CEO of Service Autopilot, and it was just his passion to teach businesses business. And he got on, when he was selling Service Autopilot at the beginning of his time, he would realize that he would put out all these YouTube videos, and they were just full of knowledge. And then people would call him, and they weren't super interested in the software. I mean, maybe they were kind of interested in the software, but they wanted to talk to him and pick his brain. So he would have a 30 to 45-minute phone call about your business, and then 5 little minutes about the software, and then they would sign up because they believed in him. So that's where he started. Let's just educate. Let's just teach people how to run a business, and then they'll essentially buy our software, and then our software does exactly what I teach. And so he was like, man, this is really, really interesting. And this was his passion. That's why he could talk so freely about business. So he started this academy, and we got on a call once a month, and we met up 4 times a year, typically in like Las Vegas because it was cheaper back then. Everybody would fly in, and we'd have a weekend, a couple days, where we would just mastermind and then go out at night and just have a really great time. And so he was the first introduction to what a coach was. I never heard of this term coaching. I didn't know that it was a thing. Growing up, I was an athlete, and I had coaches that taught us how to play football and basketball and baseball. Sure. But when it came to business, I mean, I don't know why I had never considered that this was a thing. And so I have been part of that ecosystem until it essentially collapsed. He sold the business, and so he's not involved with it anymore. The software is still there. He sold it to a big conglomerate. And in that ecosystem, there were other coaches. And I met this guy, and I went to his financial roundtable, and I was like, you know what? I don't know anything about finance. Maybe I should go to this thing. So I flew out to Kansas City. I went to this financial roundtable. It was the first time I really ever heard of the term COGS, cost of goods sold. And for most people that run a business, like, man, if you don't know that, like, you're in big trouble,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But, I had never heard that before. And I just was like, it was like an epiphany happened. I was like, wow. And then he taught you your break even number. And then he taught you how to like make a profit. And then like he taught you all this stuff. And I was like, this is fascinating. Like business is nothing but a simple math problem for the most part, you know? Business is a math problem. And
I
then
like that.
you get the dynamic of having to deal with people, you know? And that's how simple you could break down business to be, but like it seems so intimidating from the outside. And so that's where I learned that coaching is like crazy, crazy important, you know. But then you go along and you realize, okay, you've been coaching for 5 years, 10 years. I mean, even the best CEOs in the world, let's say Jeff Bezos. Well, let's say you may look up to Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk. I guarantee you that they have coaches of some sort. They probably have multiple coaches that they
Yes.
can talk to. And, so anywhere you are in your journey, it's important to have somebody that has been there, done that, been ahead of you, and can help guide you to that place. And their knowledge is very, very valuable. And it can help you not feel so much pain and get through the BS faster and grow to what you, I would know. I can tell you, I would not be here without coaches. Like my business would have failed if I didn't have coaches guiding us. But at some point, you also start to realize you hear them saying the same things. And if you never go back and implement the things, it's almost like, what are you spending your money on? And so
Yes.
this year, we have taken a year off of coaching, and it's just like, let's just implement all this stuff. Like we could talk about all these new problems and talk about these new strategies, but if I don't have enough time to implement all this other stuff down here, all these new strategies don't matter, you know?
Yeah,
So like,
that's right.
let's build that foundation back up and then let's jump back into the mix.
All right. Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. And it's interesting because sometimes there's a difference between the word coach is passed around a lot. There's difference sometimes between a mentor or a coach. A coach, just like in sports, the coach is the one that needs to be holding your feet to the fire. Like, hey, I need information back on this. If this didn't happen, why didn't it happen? So that's where it goes. And I think that's a lot of the differentiation between the two. Hey, for everybody listening, check out Blue Duck Lawn Care in the link in the description and comment on their LinkedIn that you watch their interview and an interview with Matt Crane. Matt, what is your biggest learning overall as a business owner?
Um, Man, learning changes all the time. Every single year, you have a new epiphany. And I think as you progress through the stages of life, you hit these new almost maturity levels. And I was on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, maybe, and the person said, you hit these stages every, say it's half a million, million and a half, 2 million. Like you hit these new stages of maturity. Like I don't know how necessarily to explain it other than but once you get to 500,000, you have to mature to to there, and then if you want to get to a million, you have to grow your maturity to get to that, and then you have to
Very
keep
true.
growing. And so
Right.
you have these different learning moments at all the times of the business. And I think the very first one was that, um, we had employees that started here that had never been outside of the 465 loop around Indianapolis. And maybe if you're listening to this and you're not from Indianapolis, maybe that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But 465 is this interstate that surrounds Indianapolis. And the majority of the population of the metro area now lives on the outside of 465 and all the suburbs. And we had an employee that had never been outside of 465. And the reason I tell you that is I think the very first thing that I really learned was that as a business owner, you need to think bigger. You need to realize that the world is massive out there, the opportunities are endless, and it's only limited to what you can and the amount that you can think. And beyond that, it's your imagination. Let your imagination run, and you can build this vision, and then you can go hire people to help you achieve that vision. And it
Love
goes
that.
right back to that same person that had never been outside of 465. He never knew how great this world could be. He had never traveled to another state, another city. He was always confined to this. So his entire world, his entire being was only inside of 465. And then once you start realizing that the world is a bigger place, you can start chasing bigger dreams.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that
I
was
love
my
it.
very first epiphany moment.
That's
Was like,
that's
let's go, let's think bigger, let's have a vision, and then go hire the people to help you make that vision a reality.
think bigger. I love think bigger is great. Thinking bigger is great. And you mentioned something a little bit about the getting to the different milestones in revenue and whatnot. It's an old saying, but it really works. What got you here isn't necessarily going to get you there. So you got to
Right.
constantly figure it out and constantly shape what's going to do, because with each milestone comes a whole new set of issues that you maybe not even considering on the last milestone.
Yep.
Um, hey, what are some common misconceptions about running a business?
Oh, that it's easy and the business owner's got so much money and like it's a glorious life. It's owning a business is can be extremely stressful. It's extremely lonely for most people that own a business. Um, because you get so inundated in your business and sometimes you get so far into the weeds because you don't have a choice. Maybe you don't have the money to afford overhead to help you out, and so you're the one stuck in the weeds and you can't look at your business from a 30,000-foot view and see all the fires and which ones really do I need to solve right now and which ones should I just let them burn for a little bit,
Yeah.
because I gotta deal with this. So sometimes it can be extremely, extremely stressful. And you're being pulled in all these different ways, and maybe you have cash flow problems, and then you have people problems and employee problems, and you can't get leads in, and like all these different things. And it just feels like you're churning and burning and not going anywhere. You're just running on this hamster wheel.
That's
That's a huge misconception. And the other
people.
one, yes, people, you can make great money being a business owner. It can be one of the greatest investments you ever have. It can outperform the S&P 500. It can outperform any stock market, that you'll ever get, any amount of 401k money you'll ever get, if it is done right and if it is done profitably, and if you have a strategic plan set in place. Um, but a lot of people don't get there, But on the other hand, you may see as an employee, they may see that, hey, maybe your business does a million and a half, so they think that, man, I only got paid 40 grand last year, so
Right,
man,
right.
boss is like, he's got $1.3 million in his bank, and like
Yeah.
they don't know that you lost $500,000 last year,
Right, right.
and it just like doesn't compute. So sometimes it's hard to be able to get everybody. What I'm trying to get at is you have to be able to get everybody on the same bus or rowing in the same direction. You have to cast the vision, let them
Right.
understand and know what's going on. Um, so then they can all be going towards a common goal.
I agree with you. And once you get them on the bus, you got to make sure you got the right people in the right seats on the right bus too, because sometimes you visualize something and you get somebody in there and they have skills in a completely other area that you miss the picture on. So you got to switch their seat on the bus, make sure everyone's lined up.
And then
That's
and then
that's
you got to
great.
make sure that they're happy and working hard and the culture's there, and like it it
They want to
some
stay on the
people would say if
bus.
yeah, some people would say if there was no people in business would be easy. But and you could do that. You could be a solo entrepreneur and just deal with yourself.
Yeah.
But you
Uh,
only can make such an interesting company if you're by yourself. You can make something really really interesting if you can really build it beyond your capabilities.
Awesome. Hey, well, thinking about the change that you're going through, you went through or you're going through, changing from Green's Lawn Service to Blue Duck and your service offering. And as you think about the next 1 to 3 years, what do you think your number one development area or challenge will be to achieve goals?
Man, there's a number of them for sure. We have one more strategic service offering that I'm not going to necessarily mention right now, but we have one more strategic offering that we want to introduce to the company and to our service line. That's definitely number one. Now that we've gone through this rebrand, now we can really build a new strategic plan for the 1 and 3 year, 5 year goals of our company. But the number one thing right now that we're dealing with is overhead. And overhead is a silent killer. It creeps up on you and you don't realize it because, you know, maybe you take out you finance this piece of equipment and it's only $200. Oh, it's only $300. And you're like, oh, I can afford $300. But you don't think about the other 10 things that you finance. Those are all, you know, just $300, you know, just $200. And now it's $3,000 that you owe every month. And
Yeah.
they don't care how your business is doing. They want their money when their money is due. And so the reason I said that is our number one thing at the moment is that we're going through this transition. And so we had all this equipment and all these softwares and processes and all these different things that we had that we needed at that. And now as we transition, we need new stuff. And some of this old stuff is still here and it still has payments and it still has all this stuff. And now you have to be able to get rid of it so you can make this transition, because right now it's almost like you're carrying two different overheads.
Yeah, right.
And overhead is a silent killer. A good friend of mine, he said that to me one time, and man, it has stuck in my head. And so it's like, yeah, you need to be reviewing your P&L, your balance sheet on a monthly basis at least, and making sure you can get rid of, or you have a plan to get rid of all the unnecessary stuff in your business.
Yep. You're
and
absolutely
keep
right.
it lean.
You and I talked. My dad had what became a big landscaping business back in the starting in the 60s and 70s and 80s and through the 90s, and he would bring that up too. Okay, he had all of a sudden he had 14 crews with overlap on things, and they were introducing things like irrigation, and that was a whole new scenario that they needed. They were bringing in other aspects, doing structures, doing tie walls were a big thing back then, kind of like rock is now. But then he's like, well, I got all the ties. I got to get those moving around. So I got to have a separate vehicle that carries those. And it was a constant struggle and a constant game of chess, kind of.
Yeah,
Make sure that he's
absolutely.
getting value out of things he doesn't need anymore, and making sure that all that value is applied to what he does need. So I feel with you on that for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, so last question. If there's one piece of advice, you've already given a lot of advice, but one piece of advice that you have for new business owners or people that want to start a business, what would it be?
Well, I'm gonna actually give you two.
Okay.
If you want to start a business and that is something that is deeply passionate to you, you have to do it and go for it. For somebody like myself, um, my previous business, and my previous business didn't fail, but my previous place of employment at Xerox, one, it was the management, but two is because I am a fact finder. So if you look at my Colby A index, I am inherently a fact finder. I want to know everything about everything. So that's my number one thing. And then number two is I'm a quick start. And so fact finder means that I want to know everything about anything before I go forward.
Yeah.
And so if you want to start a business, don't think that you need to know everything about business before you jump in. You just got to go and you just got to jump in the water and you got to be able to tread and tread fast and just go for it. And because if you try and learn, if you want to go get an MBA before you do it, you're probably not going to do it. You know, I mean, not saying that going to college, but if you are just a normal person and you're working at a job and you're like, I want to start this business, and then you take time off and you just want to learn and learn and learn and learn and learn, you're probably going to get so stuck in the weeds. It's analysis by paralysis. and you're just never going to do it. You just got to get in. That would be my number one thing. If it's in your heart, jump in and just do it. And
I love that.
number
Yes.
two is find a running mate. Find
Find a
somebody, and maybe that's not a person that is on your business or in your business. Maybe that's not a partner in business, because partnerships can be very tough. But that running mate could be a mentor, it could be a coach, somebody, because you're going to jump in, right? And you're not going to know what the heck you're doing. And you're going to get stuck in the mud sometimes. And you need that person that you can call at any time, that maybe they're your coach, or maybe they're a mentor, or there's somebody that you can call and say, hey, I got this problem. And they have already been there, they've done it, and they can help you get through it. And then they can get you through the toughest times really fast. Because that's what I think is super important. Is like, let's just blast through the toughest times in the business, which is when you're so small, you're wearing every single hat, you can't afford to hire anybody else. Let's just blast through that period of time as fast as possible. Let's get the pain over as fast as possible. And then we can hire these other people to help take some of that pain away from us. And the only way that you're going to do it is to hire a coach or a mentor and just dive in.
Matt, thank you so much. That was great advice. Hey, it was such a pleasure speaking with you today. I just want to thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Matt Green from Blue Duck Launch Service. You will be able to see all of his information below, and the information that I put down there in regard to links and a little bit of quick paragraph about Matt. But Matt, thanks again. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.